Welcome to another episode of our paid companionship industry insights. So with me, I have Harper. Harper, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Harper and I'm a paid companion and I'm a former representative for the Sex Workers Union. Thanks, Arik.
And my name is Arik. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Choice Technologies. And our aim is to destigmatize paid companionship through technology. So Harper, what are we talking about today?
Today is all about safety. It's probably the number one aim for anyone providing this kind of service. It's what they think about. It's the whole shebang. It's the whole thing. If you go to work and you don't feel safe, the stress that can come from that is crazy. So I've got some stats and some figures that I want to go over with you actually. So the English collection of prostitutes says that there in the UK there are 5,000 people who consider themselves a sex worker. Now, how do we make sure we keep these 5,000 people safe? And that's a very conservative figure because even though society has progressed and there are now a multitude of ways to access and engage with the sex worker online, it's not always possible to gather data on these sex workers because of the criminalization of the work they do. They're not always engaging with online services, so it's quite hard to kind of gather accurate data. But I do have some numbers. So, as part of my role at the Sex Workers Union, I was the online rep, and I wanted to gather some data to bring to the people to be able to say, look, these are the numbers. There is a need for more safety and more care in the world that we're working on online. So, 96% of the sex workers in the union reported that they had worked or advertised online in some capacity, and 80% of those people had been the victim of image-based violence. And that's just one number that I wanted to pull out there. 80% of those people have been a victim of violence, and that's not even but that's before you've even met someone in person. So today I wanted to talk about what kind of things we're working on in the background of Choice to make sure that it's going to be the super safe place to work. And I am so passionate to get this project going because I want to work in a safer environment. So, Arik, how are we working on? What have you got to tell us?
So, for me, always easy to name very specific stories or examples.
Okay.
So I think one of the very recent cases we had, well, at Choice was a provider after a meeting reported a case to us saying that she has a very strict process of meeting customers. So when a new customer requests a meeting, they always need to first meet in a public place, in a
Mm.
cafe, to have a casual chat, introduction meeting before they actually discuss follow-on meetings. And so what she reported, so she directed the customer through the choice booking process. And so the customer had to verify, scan a government issued ID and take a
Mm.
selfie for verification purposes, just like on the provider side. And then they accepted everything in the booking conditions. And 50 minutes before the meeting, the customer apparently contacted the provider suggesting that an introductory meeting at a cafe was not suitable for him, and he would prefer to meet in his car.
Ah,
So obvious. So in a regular case, Harper, what would happen in a regular case
yeah.
with a or what would you do with a customer like that?
I mean, I've had this happen before, and there's always that kind of dilemma between do I, am I being too cautious? Am I being overly cautious, or perhaps I'm right to be that hesitant. And the only thing you have to go off as an in-person provider of this kind of service, the only thing you can do is rely on your gut instincts, and that's something that you can you can practice until the cows come home. You can never always get it right. And there are so many instances I've heard of similar examples, oh come on, it's closer, I'll give you a lift, and that kind of quiet coercion that happens. It's Yeah, what would I do in this instance? I don't know. It's a very, very personal choice, but I would probably I'd probably have to stand my ground and say, no, sorry, I have to go to the place that we originally agreed. But it depends, you know, depends how trusting I was, how off guard I was caught as well. What was the outcome?
So what happened was that given the booking was made through choice, it was prepaid. So because the customer accepted the booking conditions, which included the provider process of having an introductory meeting before any follow-on meetings, and the customer explicitly accepted that, the case was clear in the sense that there would be no refund for the meeting payment to the customer, and the provider was able to, well, stand their ground without any repercussions and without having to do anything to actually stand their ground, except for filing the report that this request was made by the customer, and then reporting that. So
that's amazing. So they stood their ground and they had the data from choice to be able to back up that they had already agreed something. Wow. And they still got paid. Brilliant.
So on other platforms, like, so I mean, with your experience in the UK, like, how does it work in the UK? Like, what kind of platforms are there, and how do they treat safety?
So platforms in the UK have safety measures in that you can report if someone is harassing you, you can block them, but that's about it. There's nothing in terms of ID safety or anything like that. There is one workaround, which is if you want to meet a client and they're willing to send you their ID, they can send you that via email and you can get a kind of photographic evidence of that ID so that if anything goes wrong, you have their real name, for example. But not a lot of people are willing to do that. And that's what we call screening. It's quite popular in the US. A lot of US providers would prefer to screen that way, but people don't always want to do it. It's not a safe way of transporting, you know, such private information, is it?
There are intermediary applications though. What was it called? Private Eye.
Do you mean Client Eye?
Client Eye. Yes, that's
Yes.
the one.
Yeah, so that uses your phone number. So if for example someone has a bad experience with someone, that number is then spread between our kind of like underground networks of providers and connecting to each other and kind of going, watch out for this person. And you can add their number to what is called Client Eye, which will warn providers if they then search that number, if that client tries to contact them, it comes up that this person has a warning against them. But you take that with a pinch of salt. And if you need to meet with someone and you need that meeting to happen, then you know it's at your own risk. You have to use your gut instincts. But there are lots of safety measures with have you heard of National Ugly Mugs, where they have the system, the alert system? So if someone is a violent or a known or convicted of something to do with sort of image-based violence or sexual assault, then an alert is put out in the local area with the last few digits of their phone number and a physical description. But that's all we have.
Yeah, and I think that touches an interesting topic for our next chat, which is, you know, measures. When do they interfere with data privacy regulations? So when is sharing a known violent person's phone number actually becoming a crime against that person, as opposed to protecting potential future victims? So thanks a lot. Yeah, and see everyone during our next chat.
Yeah, good to catch up. See you soon.